Parents, when did your child outsmart you so hard you had to just respect it? My 8-year-old daughter Sophie has always been clever, but one particular incident left me completely speechless. It started on a regular Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home, juggling deadlines while Sophie was supposed to be doing her homework. Our rule was simple: homework first, then screen time. But that day, I kept catching her watching videos on her tablet. "Sophie, homework first," I reminded her for the third time, trying to keep my voice calm despite my growing frustration. "I already finished it," she claimed, not looking up from her screen. I sighed. "Let me see it then." She reluctantly pulled out her math worksheet, and sure enough, it was complete. But something felt off. The answers were correct, but the work looked rushed. "Did you show your work like Mrs. Garcia asked?" I questioned. "Yes," she mumbled. I looked closer and noticed she'd barely written anything. "This isn't showing your work. You need to do this properly." "But that's stupid," she protested. "I can do it in my head. Why do I have to write it all down?" "Because that's how learning works," I explained, "and it's how your teacher knows you understand the concept." Sophie glared at me, clearly annoyed. "Fine." I confiscated her tablet and set it on the kitchen counter. "You can have this back when you've properly redone your homework." An hour later, I was deep in work when Sophie approached with her revised worksheet. "Done." I checked it over, and this time she'd shown all her work. "Good job," I said, handing back her tablet. The next day, I got a call from Mrs. Garcia. "Mr. Thompson, I wanted to discuss Sophie's math homework." My heart sank. "Is something wrong?" "Well, it's quite unusual. Sophie turned in 2 sets of homework today. One was her regular assignment, completed perfectly. The other was a 5-page proof explaining why showing work for basic addition and subtraction is inefficient for students who have already mastered mental math." I nearly choked. What? She cited developmental psychology studies and even included a chart tracking her time spent on problems when she shows work versus when she doesn't. She concluded that forcing her to write out steps she already knows wastes 18.5 minutes per homework session, which she calculated adds up to 55.5 hours per school year. I was speechless. I had no idea. "Neither did I," Mrs. Garcia laughed. "But here's the thing, her arguments are sound. She's clearly understanding the material at a much higher level than I realized." After hanging up, I found Sophie in her room. "So," I started, trying to sound casual, "Mrs. Garcia called about your extra homework." Sophie looked up innocently. "Oh, a 5-page research paper, really?" She shrugged. "You said I had to show my work. You didn't say which work." I tried to maintain a stern face, but failed miserably. "You spent hours researching and writing a paper to prove you shouldn't have to spend minutes showing your math work. It was a long-term investment," she replied matter-of-factly. "Now Mrs. Garcia says I only have to show work on new concepts." I shook my head in disbelief. "You realize you spent way more time on that paper than you would have just following the rules, right?" "This time," she agreed. "But now I never have to waste time again. That's how compound interest works, Dad. You taught me that." In that moment, I realized my daughter had outplayed me at my own game. She'd found a creative solution, backed it with research, and presented it professionally, all to avoid what she considered busy work. "You know what? I respect the hustle," I finally said, unable to contain my pride. Sophie beamed. "So I'm not in trouble?" "Not this time. But maybe use your powers for good, not just avoiding homework?" "Deal," she said with a grin that told me this was only the beginning of her negotiating career.